Via telephone, financial Phil McCoy. Good morning, Philly.
Good morning, guys. How are you all?
We are right now obsessed with New Orleans, apparently.
There we go. It does sound odd to walk uphill to see a river. I grew up right beside the Tug River, but it was below us. It was not above us.
That's where rivers are supposed to be. They work better.
And when it's
way.
above you, you should not be
where they
surprised.
belong.
You should not be surprised when it floods when it's above you.
Correct. And the one below us flooded quite often. It was they had the flood wall that they built just before I left.
Changes the whole meaning of the creek don't rise, right?
That's right.
Lord willing, the creek don't rise.
Exactly.
In that case, it's the creek falling. Phil, we are just about done with this preseason, this what they used to call exhibition season in the NFL, but they like you to call it preseason now. This is a 3 to 4 game deal. If you play in the Hall of Fame game, I guess it's 4. Teams don't play their starters. They're playing, for the most part, they're playing their backups, and maybe 1 or 2 of them can make the team based on what they do in these preseason games. A couple of them, maybe a few more. So I don't know. The NFL charges full price for these tickets. These aren't discounted seats. There's a clamoring for an 18th game, reduce the preseason games to 2. I think you could get rid of the preseason games, period, end of story. You could just do the practices teams do with each other like the Steelers in Tampa did this week, because the preseason games seem to be something that nobody wants anybody of importance to play in, Phil. They're actually, Washington's on Monday night tonight. You got Monday Night Football with a bunch of backups.
I agree from the viewership standpoint. It's not very interesting to watch. But however, I'd like to at least see 2 preseason games, because there's a lot of guys on the bottom of those rosters that are merely playing knowing they're going to get cut. The teams know they're going to cut them, release them, and so other people can see them. And so that from that standpoint, that's where I kind of like, yeah, that's important to a lot of those bottom roster guys. I don't know that they need to be televised and make a big deal out of it and charge full admission for season ticket holders in order to get the season ticket pass for those games. But it is important for a handful of those guys. It wasn't long ago that I think Tyson Bagent's performance in the preseason probably helped him make that roster. And in this season, the way he's played in the first few games has probably solidified his spot on the roster. I don't know if it'll be the 2 or 3, but it has certainly solidified that he's going to be there. So there's some value in it from the bottom of the roster standpoint. Maybe some guys coming off injury like Cole Holcomb. But I'm like you, to charge full admission for that to season ticket holders, it's almost comical. And I don't know that you need 3 of them. You could probably get away with 2. I'm also against 18 games, man. These guys, I'd like to see them healthy in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl, opposed to, and you take away a little bit of meaning from each game. That's part of the draw to the NFL. Is every game is so important, and the more games that you add, it's a little bit less important. And of course, if they add another game, you'll have to purchase another streaming service in order to watch that extra game. So
Tyson was on TV last night, by the way. He played pretty well from what I saw.
Did you hear Ryan Poles? They interviewed Ryan Poles. I actually turned on the game when I got home to watch, see if he was still playing. He had just finished his last series, and they were interviewing Ryan Poles, which is the Bears GM, and he had spoke glowingly of Tyson Bagent. So good for him. So if he's still in Chicago, he sounds like he's made a home there. So good for him. He did really well.
Yeah, I saw. But heck, the Bears in general were playing really well last night too. But I'm not sure how much Buffalo cared. That's the thing. Yeah, the Bears look great, but I don't know if Buffalo cared. They look like they didn't want to be there.
Yeah, and then I think you get that a lot with in the preseason. That, but if you're trying to make a roster, that's the place to do it. That's where I kind of, in a way, I'm like, well, I think those games are important. They're not important for, Cam Hayward and T.J. Watt and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and the likes, but they're important for those guys that are just simply trying to make a roster somewhere.
Good, John.
These guys who get cut in the preseason, the bottom roster guys, I'm going to guess that does not go on their business card. Is it done? Is their lifetime of dreaming about the NFL done after they're cut from preseason?
For most of them. Some of them will catch on somewhere here or there. But most of them are done.
I mean, they may jump from practice squad to practice squad.
There's no minor league, right?
There used to be.
Well, Yeah, kind of, but not one that really has a direct path to the NFL. But there was a few years ago. How many times did James Harrison get cut, Rob? I don't know. It was quite a bit.
5.
And he was cut a lot. And from Pittsburgh and Baltimore, hung out on practice squads and the like. That's an odd story, but so some of them will find a home elsewhere. I remember I played with James Roots in the mid '90s, and he kind of jumped around from practice squad to practice squad. But it was a great experience for him. I think he made the active roster for Herm Edwards a couple of times. I don't know how much he actually played, but I
remember Roots.
So for those guys,
Roots was like the premier Division II kick returner in his time at Shepherd.
He was right behind Bootsy. Yeah, Bootsy broke records, and Jimmy came in right behind him and broke his records. But he had a little bit of a career in the NFL and in NFL Europe. He coached for a little bit and for the Ravens, but all that was honestly it was due to preseason games. If there were no preseason, he never would have made it out of his first camp. But he had a little bit of a career. He didn't get I don't think he filled up the stat sheet, but he jumped around from practice squad to practice squad, made a couple paydays, and parlayed that to the NFL Europe, and a great experience for him. Now he's doing really well, and I think it's in Baltimore, Rob, that James is, and I think he's a football coach.
What's up there, Dylan? Dylan?
Here we go.
There you go. Turn your mic on.
Turn the volume up on the mic.
Yeah.
Ronnie Brown, Shepherd running back from just a couple years ago, just apparently recently went viral for getting heckled by a fan in the Arena Football League.
Oh, no.
That has been ongoing over the summer. There's the UFL, which used to be the XFL, owned by Vince McMahon, then owned by The Rock, and I think that's still who owns it at this point. And John, if you're wondering, a practice squad salary for an NFL player is at the very least $13,000 per week that you're on a practice squad.
Is that Vince McMahon, the same Bears Vince McMahon from the 80s?
Wrestling Vince McMahon, not
I don't know.
Not the quarterback.
The quarterback. Wasn't that?
No,
Nope.
Jim McMahon.
Jim McMahon. Okay.
Jim
Sports ball is my life, ladies and gentlemen. It was a single syllable McMahon. Okay.
Let's talk money, Phil.
Let's do it.
Yeah, what guides the market this week? What are we all waiting on?
There's a handful of stuff. I think there's going to be media attention on Zelensky coming to meet with Trump. I don't know how much that will impact the markets, quite honestly, but some corporate earnings still to come out later this week. The retail box store kind of earnings, Walmart, Target, and the likes, and I think TJ Maxx even, but Home Depot, but also Jackson Hole. And now Jackson Hole isn't a rate decision meeting, but we'll do a little history and go back to 2022. I had to look that up. I couldn't remember if it was 21 or 22. But when Jerome Powell said that we had to feel some pain before they would even consider rates coming back down, and what he meant by that was the economy needed to struggle. We needed to see some weakness in the economy, which we have seen since. We've seen the inflation come down, and we have seen the labor market struggle a little bit. It's nothing drastic, but the labor market stepped back. So his words this week, as a culmination of what the entire board thinks at Jackson Hole and the rate path ahead. Man, I search every Sunday. I said, we've got to talk about something other than the Federal Reserve, but that is what's important right now, and there's really no way to deny it. So if we're going to talk about what's important, it is the rate decisions and the path of how many times we think that they're going to do that. And so this week, Jackson Hole, little history lesson, 2022 was an awful, awful period after he said those words. I think that's one of those little sayings that may end up in history books someday, because it was a terrible time shortly thereafter. Led to a terrible, or kind of capped off, a terrible year in 2022.
Phil McCoy, our guest from Ameriprise Financial and the Mirius Group of Financial Advisors. Now, Bill's been sitting on a question for you all morning long, and he's patiently waiting for me to call on him to ask you. So I'm going to Gilstrap first instead.
There goes my question, Phil.
Go ahead, Bill. I was kidding.
Okay. Hey, Phil, I tape the Sunday morning talk shows and watch them in the afternoon. And one came up yesterday that gave me a pause for thought. Fareed Zakaria has you showed a graph of contribution to the gross domestic product, and it showed that for the first time, the contribution of a few companies investing in artificial intelligence exceeds all the consumer spending. Contribution to gross domestic product, consumer spending was approximately 0.5%, whereas investment in artificial intelligence was nearly 1%. What does that tell us for the economy, that more spending is going into artificial intelligence than it is all the consumer spending?
It leads the way right now because it's new, first of all, and or fairly new. I don't want to say it's new, but it just goes to show, and even we talk about this quite often, when you look at the largest companies in the world, say in year 2000 opposed to now, how drastically different it is in what they focus on. And look no further, and this is kind of off the beaten path with artificial intelligence, look no further than Amazon. They used to be a book company, and now they're into retail, streaming services, medicine, the whole 9 yards. But that's how our economy in the world has changed, and artificial intelligence has been a huge boom for the stock market, kind of kept us afloat a lot of times, and it seems to be the next leg. Every time we have a leg up, it's started by those artificial intelligence companies. So it just shows the changes in our economy, how drastically, how liquid they are and elastic that our economy is, and how quickly it can change in artificial intelligence right now. And I've still yet to grasp in my Southern West Virginia mind how you monetize artificial intelligence. We use it all the time, and we use it basically for free. We're not really paying anything for that, but how will you monetize it to the extent that it's being monetized, and the grand need for it from all of these companies, tech companies and medical companies and the like, is amazing. It's very interesting to me, but I still haven't grasped it. But it is the leader right now in our economy as well, and they're not the same thing as well as our stock market.
Yeah, Phil, I understand that, but I'm curious about the magnitude. Let me go back a little bit. At the beginning of January of this year, the consumer spending contributed 2.5%, and now it's down to 0.5%, whereas our AI growth at the beginning of the year was around 0.1%. Now it's nearly 1%. So it's the magnitude of the shift is what surprises me more than anything else.
Yeah, and a lot of that, Bill, is because consumer spending has slowed. And as consumer spending has slowed, the percentages of other sectors that make up our GDP, will, of course, will rise, whether they're rising naturally or just as a result as consumer spending slowing. But consumer spending has slowed a little bit, which is, you can give credit to that back to the inflation narrative, why inflation is kind of stagnated or kind of leveled off a little bit, but consumer spending has slowed quite a bit. Therefore, along with the growth of artificial intelligence, it just makes up a larger percentage of it. Mr.
Gilstrap.
I don't have a lot this way.
You can pass if you want to.
Well,
just
I guess
pass.
I think my question is, do I need to actually become familiar with Bitcoin? Do I have to? Is that the future? Is cash going away, and do we have to all become familiar with this fake currency of Bitcoin and its relatives?
No and yes. Cash isn't going away, not in our view anyway. So no to that question. However, Bitcoin, now that the regulation is allowing it in 401k plans, ultimately that will make its way into individual retirement accounts or IRAs as well, which right now we can't even hold it. Now we can hold things that have exposure to Bitcoin, but Bitcoin directly or cryptocurrency directly, we can't hold that directly inside of IRAs or individual accounts. But now that regulation is open for 401ks, you'll need to know about it if you want exposure to it. And at some point, it's still for us, it's not really a starter. We would invest, maybe some of our investment platforms hold the platforms in which crypto is traded on, like say a Coinbase, but direct exposure to it because it has no intrinsic value. So we still struggle with that whole mindset of it. but it is going to be allowed. And I don't know how long this will take, but it is going to be allowed in 401k plans. And you'll probably start to see those on really small 401k plans before you will the larger 401k plans, because there's an education component to it that the custodians must provide to those investing. So that's why it takes so long for some of these to make their way into your workplace retirement plans. But no, I don't think it's replacing cash, and I don't think our overall opinion at Ameriprise is either that it's replacing cash. But if you need to be familiar with it, yeah, maybe to the extent if you want exposure to it, what kind of exposure, or if you do not want exposure to it, how do you avoid that? What mutual funds and what sectors would you avoid just to stay away from Bitcoin if you're afraid of its volatility? Now, the volatility of Bitcoin will probably settle down at some point as more regulation enters the fray and more investors come in. The volatility of it may settle down some, and some are even looking at it as an alternative like a gold or a silver. But right now it is very interesting, and it is going to be something that will become more mainstream, and even those that aren't on the crypto platforms can get exposure to.
Now, when you said crypto platforms, you used the plural, so there are multiples of them. Is there an established? Is Bitcoin the currency? I mean, is there? If I want to buy something from a tangible thing from Rob, and he has priced it in cryptocurrency, is it priced in like a crypto, or is it priced in dollars and I have to convert?
Yeah, it's priced in whichever crypto you're using, so it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or whichever it may be, but then it's converted to dollars. You still have to have dollars to buy this crypto stuff. And it opened up for a while, and I think there's some products and things that you can purchase with cryptocurrency, but Bitcoin seems to be the standard for crypto. It's the most well known, and sometimes it's a proxy for crypto as a whole. It would just say Bitcoin. Like my mother used to call every appliance a Maytag. Whether it was a Maytag or not, she called every appliance a Maytag, and every detergent was called Tide. It didn't matter if it was Cheer; she still called it the Cheer kind of Tide. Go get that at the grocery store. But we use Bitcoin as just another way of saying cryptocurrency.
Phil, how does that differ from the stable coin?
Stablecoin is meant to. The purpose of stablecoin is in its name. It's meant to be stable. So when you look at stablecoin, although it's a crypto and it has the attraction of crypto, I think their goal is to be much more stable and remove some of that volatility. And it makes me question, well, if you're going to do that, why not go with one of the more traditional stable type investments, or cash, short-term bonds, or something along those lines, opposed to a crypto? But the stable coin is in its name. Like a lot of mutual funds will tell you exactly what they're trying to do in their name. They just want it to be stable. So they're not looking for that grand volatility that you can get with most other cryptos.
Well, I know a lot of young people are investing in that and putting a lot of money in.
Not knowing very much about it, I feel, looking at the volatility alone, the crypto is one end and our traditional currencies on the other end. Where does stablecoin reside between these two extremes?
I'm not sure, but I would guess that the whole purpose of it is to be right in the middle, to get us a better return than what you can get on more traditional stable investments, but not deal with the volatility. So it would fit on a standard deviation range. And this is only a guess, so if I'm wrong, I apologize. But my guess would be it would be right smack dab in the middle of those two.
And Phil, before we get out of here, 2 minutes. We had inflation reports last week, one of which was the CPI, which was only slightly higher than expected. The other PPI was much higher than expected. Where does that leave us with rate cuts?
Well, the CPI, and to my recollection, the CPI was slightly better than expected, and the PPI was a little bit worse than what was expected. But that's telling us that the producers, because the PPI is a producer price index, have no idea why sometimes the CPI is first and the PPI is second. But the producers of these, or the wholesalers of our goods and services, are seeing price increases that the consumers yet haven't seen. That's what those two reports in conjunction tell us. So it would make sense to think, and that's why it's so important what Jerome Powell says that on Friday is the perception that the next CPI is going to be much higher because the PPI was much higher or higher than expected, I should say. Not necessarily much higher, but higher than expected. So the producers are seeing higher prices. The consumers, as it was measured, did not see higher prices.
And I saw that sometime around that report, CD rates went up, which I found to be interesting. If CD rates are going up, I wouldn't think there would be a rate cut that would be imminent, even though most are saying that they are.
The PPI report, when it came out, it reduced the odds of further rate cuts, but not the one in September. So the one in September still remained a very high probability, but the longer-term rates, they kind of cut those projections back a little bit based off of that PPI report, assuming that it makes its way into the consumers at next or even the following report.
Phil, how do we get in touch with you for more information today?
You can reach us at 304-263-4343 or stop by and see us with an appointment at 1270 Winchester Avenue right here in Martinsburg.
Thank you, Phil. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Phil.
You can catch 2 minutes of Financial Phil each weekday morning at 6:38, replayed at 7:38. This is Talk Radio, WRNR Martinsburg.